all of us look at the baby boomers and go, we are the biggest bunch of losers. Like, look at everything they have. But we forget the fact that we went through a massive worldwide recession, a pandemic, and conversely, baby boomers' wages were relatively high compared to expenses. Housing was cheap. College was cheap. The stock market was going through the roof. And so they had this perfect storm to amass wealth that not only did we not have, but we had all sorts of other stuff. No wonder we're all like, what the hell happened? And why are we scrambling?
And don't forget, a very large chunk of baby boomers had pensions.
Exactly.
They had significant material revenue support once they left the workforce in a way that the rest of us don't. We're doing it on our own. The burden has been shifted from companies to us. Oh no, it's no joke.
Welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Drinks with the Girls. We are very excited about this episode. We have one of our favorite guests back to do a part 2. And I'm just going to leave you hanging. That's a little teaser for you right there. But we're going to talk about something very, very important. So you want to stay tuned. But before we introduce her, I'm going to let you know what I'm drinking. Lisa's going to make fun of me, but I'm drinking an ice cold Modelo with 2 limes.
Wow. Why would I make fun of you? God, you totally just have all this like judgy energy around me and drinks, man. Jeez Louise.
Dude, you judge my beers all the time because they're not craft beers.
Well, there's that.
Okay.
The PNW snob in me. I am drinking in one of my beautiful glasses that I actually shockingly still have from our wedding stuff. Don't know how that happened. And it's my fave. It's the Michael David Petite, which I freaking love. So, and special mystery guest, would you like to introduce yourself? You're not a mystery. Would you like to introduce yourself and say what you're drinking?
Sure. My name is Karen Van Voorhis. I'm happy to be back for another episode. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a financial planner outside of Boston, and I am not drinking alcohol. I am drinking ginger ale with some cranberry juice in it.
Well, that's a little festive. Yeah, Karen is doing all the end of the year things, so we are very, very pleased that she made some time for us. So I can probably understand why you don't want to go on a bender with us tonight.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's a busy 2 weeks.
That's fair. That's fair.
A lot of year-end work to do. That's right.
Yep. So you guys loved the episode that we did last time, and I'll put it in the show notes, but we thought it would be really cool to talk about, kind of what Karen's dealing with right now, which is the new year and resetting finances and just kind of like getting ready for tax season and all that kind of stuff, because she gave us such fantastic tips last time. So that's kind of the general theme, but as you know, we love our rabbit holes, so who knows where this will go, but I'm excited.
So Karen, let's dive in. What do women need to know as we head into the new year? What are some really good baseline things that we need to know this time of year in terms of our financial wellness?
So sometimes I think about things to do in the new year into a little bit into 2 camps. So one is, what are the things that I need to be doing anyway? So what are some projects that I've been putting off, some things that I need to learn, some things that I've been wondering, and we talked about that in the other episode. about women being more engaged and learning something they hadn't learned before about their investments, about their 401k plans at work. So there's some of that. And then sometimes in the new year, I like to think about what's different this year versus last year. So we could take those different categories one at a time if you'd like. So one thing to think about, if we take the second one first, one thing to think about in terms of what's different in the new year versus in the prior year is often things like contribution limits go up for retirement plans and for things like health savings accounts, that those adjust for inflation depending on what's been going on with inflation. So they lots of times will pop up a little bit. And I mention this because this ties to people's payroll to the extent that you work for an employer and then employer offers you a 401k plan or a 403b plan. And to the extent there is a group of people in this country that are actually maxing out their retirement plan contributions at work. So if you're one of those people, just know that those limits increase at the start of every year. And so one thing you might want to do when you get your first pay stub in the new year or early enough on in the new year is pull off your pay stub and do the math around how much you're in dollars. If you keep going on how you're going, how much in dollars over the course of the new year will you be contributing to the 401k plan, for example? Or will you be contributing to your health savings account? Those are the two biggies usually when we have an employer.
Yeah. I was doing every year, I was having my 401k contributions tick up 1% each year.
Yes.
But since my husband is not working and we're dealing with disability, I had to cut that for now because it was just like, I can't do this right now. I need to have some more, not disposable, but income at the ready. So, but I'll probably go back to doing it once, hopefully, everything gets straightened out.
It's also good to get to know, while we're on the same subject of employer plans, it's good to get to know your plan a little bit, which is to say, for example, how much is the employer match, if indeed there's an employer match, which many plans, and the employer-related benefits generally are more robust in larger companies versus in smaller companies. But so, for example, if there's a match on what you're contributing, on a potential match on your contributions, you want to be sure you're capturing that match. So if you're falling short, if the match is 50% of your income up to 6% of your salary, which that's a pretty common match, you want to be sure you're deferring that 6%. So if to date you've been settling in at a 4% contribution rate or a 5% contribution rate, it means you're leaving money on the table. If your employer is offering a match and you're not contributing in order to catch 100% of it. So that's always good to reevaluate. The other thing is, if we want to stay on employer plans for a second. So employer plans are getting more complicated. They're also getting more beneficial. They're getting more fancy, if you will. And as a result, we have to pay more attention to employer plans. And so a couple things to look at. One is how much are you contributing, as I mentioned. Two is how much is your employer putting in for you, if anything. Three is, what are those limits? The annual limits have gone up a little bit, and payroll won't automatically adjust that for you. So you need to physically go online and change that information. The other piece that is newish that is worth getting to know is this component of retirement called Roths. So people have probably heard of Roth IRAs. What's happened that's new is that Roths now are becoming a dynamic inside of employer-sponsored 401k and 403b plans. And that's something that is plan specific. Your plan has to offer a Roth feature, if you will. But more and more plans are starting to do that. And that's completely worth paying attention to.
So, clarifying question.
Yeah.
What is I mean, I know what the difference is between like a regular Roth and your 401k, but this sounds different. Can you clarify like 401k, 403b, and then this new Roth kind of situation?
Yeah. So the way you want to think of it, a Roth is, people use it to describe an IRA. Like, I have a Roth IRA, or I have a regular IRA, I have a traditional IRA, or a Roth IRA. The word Roth, which by the way is named after a senator who 25 years ago from Delaware passed, Senator Roth, who passed the bill to create Roths. And you want to think of it as a type of dollar. You don't want to think of it as describing an account. You want to think of it as a type of dollar that's going into the account. So if you have a regular IRA, let's just stick with IRAs, which are not employer-sponsored plans, but they're similar, but they're just plans that an account that you would open on your own. But the same concept applies. If you have that, then what typically happens is you would make a contribution into this IRA. You'd get a tax deduction for it right now. So you would put on your tax return that you contributed however much to this particular traditional IRA, they often call it. So that type of dollar that's going in there is pre-tax, because you got a deduction for it going in. And then while it's inside the account itself, it grows tax-free the whole time, tax deferred. There's no taxes the whole time it's in the account. But on the back end, when you get into retirement and you draw those funds out, you have to pay taxes on them. So that's the regular sort of way of doing things. That idea has been in place since IRAs and 401k plans were invented. The new wrinkle now is Roth dollars. And Roth dollars, if you have an IRA, go into a Roth IRA. And that is where, and Roths are like the opposite of that, basically. So you don't get a tax deduction on the front end. You just take money out of your checking or savings account that has already been taxed to you. It came to you in your paycheck and got taxed, and you just are taking it and you're putting it into a Roth IRA. And then it grows while it's inside the account, tax deferred. And what happens is on the back end, when you take it out in retirement, it comes out tax free. So there's opposite sides of the same coin. So the dynamic of Roths is newish because it hasn't been around. I mean, it's been around for 20 years, but they haven't been very popular, but for the last bunch of years. It's also Roth IRAs in particular, we're talking about IRAs now for a second, are particularly popular with a younger generation. And the reason why they're popular with a younger generation is because, first of all, at some point, there's an income phase out for your ability to contribute to a Roth IRA. And so people who are younger or single earlier on in their careers usually are well within those ranges, so they can do a Roth. Also, think about it. If you're earlier in your career, your tax bracket is usually lower. Your whole tax profile is not as severe as someone who is 55 and has been working for 30 years. And so as a result, it's really appealing for a population that doesn't pay very much in taxes, because you're making the contribution with after-tax dollars. So if it's going to cost you something in taxes in order to make the contribution, you might as well do, it's particularly advantageous if you're only in a 10% tax bracket, for example, right? So what's happened is Roth IRAs have been around for a while. And by the way, it is useful from a financial planning standpoint to have pots of money eventually, so two different types of accounts that have different tax profiles. Because when I see clients who are heading towards retirement, one of the things that happens later in life, if you stop and think about it, is eventually paychecks go away. And then we have to start drawing on this magnificent pile of money that you've done such a fabulous job accumulating and investing for so many years, that we in the field call the portfolio. So you have the portfolio, and then you're going to start drawing on it. So a lot of the work that I do with clients who are either headed towards retirement or newly in retirement or in retirement is figuring out what account to draw from. Think about it. If you've been married for a long time and you have lots of different employers and you have some money here and you have some money there, right? You've got a lot of different choices. That's what we call a drawdown strategy or liquidation strategy. And it's really useful if you have different types of dollars. If I have available to me in a portfolio with a client, if the client's got the option of pulling on this particular type of account and it's taxed one way, or this particular type of account and it's taxed another way, then I, as the planner, have some flexibility in guiding them. If they're in a very high tax year, we might opt to take out from one particular account. If they're in a particularly low tax year, we might opt to take out from a different account. So having Roth money in the mix is useful. Now, if we go back to the employer-sponsored plans for a second, this Roth idea has been introduced in the world of employer-sponsored plans. So, and this is particularly newish within the last handful of years. It's allowable that you can make Roth contributions, like by federal law, into your plan, but your plan has to allow for it. Mm. So one good thing that people could do in the new year, this goes back to what I was saying a couple of minutes ago, which is get familiar or refamiliarize yourself with your spouse's or your partner's employer-sponsored plan, because even if they've been at the same company for a long time, there's a chance that there are new offerings in that plan or they're doing something different, right? So sometimes you have a plan, more and more often, employers are offering plans where you can choose how to make the contribution. You can choose to make the contribution with pre-tax dollars, the old-fashioned way, you get a deduction. But on the back end, when you draw the money out, to pay taxes on it. Or there's a Roth option in many of these plans now, which is to say that you put the money in, you don't get a deduction for it. But eventually when you draw the money out, it comes out tax-free. And inside a 401k plan, you can have both. It's not unusual for people to have both. Sometimes they spent the first 5 years putting in pre-tax money and someone switches to Roth. And now they're putting in Roth money, or they're contributing. You can also have a split percentage, like I'm contributing, let's say 10% into my plan, and 5% of that is in Roth dollars, and 5% of that is in regular dollars, in pre-tax dollars.
Let me ask you another clarifying question. And Karen, I don't mean to